So again, my name is Nicole Pratt, and I work at the SPAN Parent Advocacy Network, where first and foremost, I'm a parent of two young adults now. My daughter is 29 and my son is 23. And I was just sharing earlier, my first job in this field was working at the Hudson County Special Child Health Services when my son was 18 months. So, it's been a long journey, and I've been at SPAN now for 14 and a half years. Started out as a trainer and then moved into other positions. And more recently, in the past November, took on the role as the training director at SPAN. So, it's given me great pleasure to be able to provide training and support to families and professionals. And I also have another role where I am the project director on our Leaders Empowered as Advocates with Dignity project, which actually affords me to be able to provide you with this training, because under that project, it's about leadership, training, and development, but also helping people to understand and reminding people to we need to take care of ourselves, and how do we do that effectively. We know it, but sometimes it's always good to hear it, right? And to give you some tools and tips about how to do that, because we are all very busy people, right? Not just work, but also in our personal lives, whether you're a parent or caregiver, or whatever is happening in your life. So I was really grateful when they asked, and I was happy that I was able to talk to them, because they caught me while I was in California at a conference, and I was like, sure, we could meet. Let me see what time it is, because it was a 3 hour time minutes difference, but I was glad we were able to, and checking my schedule to make sure I could do it. So I'm glad it's going to work out. So to get started, one of the things I do when we do this training, because we do this training for parents on a monthly basis. And one of the things I do, we start out with a 5 minute meditation. So I'm going to start with that before I actually pull up the PowerPoint, because it's actually the second slide, but I have the video up in the background. So you can turn your camera off. You can, listen to it. It's one that I use quite often. And hold on. Not okay, there we go. You can turn your camera off. You can just listen, and just listen to the words and the voice of the person who's doing the meditation. It does have a very soothing effect. And so let's enjoy. So,
Hey there, and thanks for gifting
can you
yourself
hear
these
it?
next few
You
minutes.
can hear it?
It's important to remember that you're a priority, and allowing yourself even just a few short minutes of intentional reflection can really have a positive impact on the rest of your day. So let's use these next few minutes. Come back to center and set an intention for the rest of your day.
Oh, oh.
Move into a comfortable position, whether you're seated at your desk at work or laying on the couch at home, and gently close your eyes. And tend to your breathing. Slower, deeper breaths than you've taken all day so far. Taking a deep breath in through your nose and slowly letting it out through your mouth. And continuing to breathe that way, feeling your lungs expand out as you inhale and contract back in as you exhale. Tune into your body, noticing how it feels. Noticing if there's anything that it's trying to tell you. Notice any place of tension or tightness in your body. And give those areas permission to relax, sending love into those areas. Thank your body for taking such good care of you, and let it know that it's okay to rest and relax for these next few minutes. You may notice that your mind starts to wander off. That's okay. That's natural. Just notice it and bring your attention back to your body, using your breath as your anchor. Try to picture one thing that's happened today that's made you smile, or made you thankful or appreciative. And just let that feeling fill you up for a moment. Breathe that feeling in from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, and allow yourself to smile if that feels natural. Now focus on something that you can do today, whether it's for yourself or for someone else, that will allow you to continue feeling this way. It could be something as small as deciding to go to bed early tonight so that you have time to finally read that book that's been on your bedside table, or the joy of getting dinner with a close friend. What's one little thing you can plan for your day to bring that intentional joy to it? Now just focus on that for a few minutes. Sit in that feeling of joy and peace. Now let's take a few more deep breaths together. A deep breath in, feeling your lungs expand out as you inhale, and everything contract back in as you exhale. Again, an even deeper breath than the one before it, holding that breath for a beat and exhaling everything out. Last time, your deepest breath yet, sending that breath through your entire body, and exhale it out. And in your own time, slowly bring your awareness back to where you are, and thank yourself for taking these few minutes to just be intentional and kind to yourself. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes and enjoy the rest of your day.
How does everyone feel? Sometimes it's just good to like take that because we forget to take the moment, right? Because we're so busy. So, all right. So now we're going to get into the information about uh, just remembering to be able to be kind to ourselves. I love that phrase, and the word that he uses is being intentional. So many times we're not very intentional about taking care of ourselves because things are happening and things are going on in our lives, and things will always happen and go on, but we have to remember that, and I love these quotes, that physical health and our mental health are extremely very closely connected, and what's good for our body is also good for our minds, and we'll talk more about that like later on. And then you have to take care of yourself first, so it won't be any good to others, just like we tell you to put the oxygen mask on first, then put it on the other person, because we want to make sure that we're able to have what we need to do that. And so we're going to talk about stress, right? Because in order to take care of ourselves, we need to understand where our stresses are lying and where it's coming from. And so when we think about stress, there are these three kinds of stress, and usually we don't think about them in these terms. And so I'm going to want you to type some things in the chat. So when we think about positive stress, so in this definition, it says brief increases of heart rate, mild elevations of stress or hormone levels. So when you think about that word positive stress, what comes to mind? What are positive stressors that happen to us? 5 minutes, everyone. Yeah, I'll send you the link on that one. Yep, I'll send the link on the video. So what is positive stress? What's some positive stress that you can think of? I did this at the preschool, the early childhood, applying for and getting a new job. Yeah, that is right. That has positive stressors, especially getting the job. Organizing your day and schedule, right? And staying on task. Work, I love it. It's work. Yeah. Um, when I did this last week, someone said planning a vacation, right? And so it's stressful, but it's positive, especially if the outcome of the vacation is happy, right? What are some positive stressors that you can think of? What about like extremely good news or a good health outcome, right? That could be a positive stressor, like you got news on some blood work that, you were waiting for, right? So those things. Right now, let's talk about tolerable stress, right? So this is where it's kind of in between, and the definition, serious temporary stressors response to buffer, but is supported by relationships, by others. So what are some tolerable stressors? It's somewhere between positive, somewhere between toxic. So what are those tolerable stressors, which sometimes we may have two of those a week, depending upon the week. What are tolerable stressors that encounter our lives? School meetings, yep, they can be stressful. What other tolerable stressors? Right? Because we want to make sure that when we have these types of stresses, that the people who are the supporters. What are some other picking up and oh yeah, especially I notice many schools now have this. If you're driving, you have to kind of go around some sort of circle and stay in the line. From what I'm seeing, that's stressful, right? Picking and dropping off kids in school. Yeah. Anyone else tolerable stress? Other types of tolerable stress? Oh yes. Doctor and dentist appointments, right? You're going in for a checkup. And then they may say, well, your blood work says this. You're like, I just came in for a checkup, or the dentist says, you got to get this tooth out, right? So now you got to come back. What about, okay, I have another one for you. What about getting in, or you're going for an oil change, listening to your 80-year-old father talk about what didn't work? I like that. What about going to get an oil change? And then what did they say? They call your name. They're like, your tires in the back you need new tires. You're like, or you need new brakes. And you're like, well, how much is that going to cost? So that's like that tolerable stress, and you have to make a decision. Well, I need my car, so I think I'm going to have to get brakes to tire. Your in-laws. I like that. Tolerable stress, right? It's temporary, but it's tolerable. You have to deal with it, right? Okay. Now the next one, toxic stress. Prolonged activation of stress response systems in absence of others that may not be there to support you. What is some toxic stress? You can turn the TV on and feel toxic stress, but what are some toxic stressors that are sometimes unavoidable, or unexpected? What are some toxic stressors? Chronic illness, yes, right? What are the other toxic stressors? You think a phone call from the nurse's office could be toxic? Sometimes I feel that way. Oh yeah, watching the news. Yeah. Oh, that is definitely toxic to our mental health. Supporting your 90-year-old aunt who lives in another state. Oh, yes, that is very, very scary. Very scary. Especially if there's not many people. Hopefully there's people around her, but still that's your relative, right? Definitely watching the news. I try to limit myself because it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. What are some other toxic stressors? that sometimes people deal with. Yes, right. And if the school is not doing anything about it the way they should, that can be very, very toxic, not only to that child, to the parent or caregiver, if the teacher is trying to do something about it, right, and not feeling supported. Negative work environment, non-supportive, intimidation, harassment, bullying. Yes, definitely. Yeah, right. Those are very toxic work stressors. Yeah, yeah. So I think with a lot of things that people have mentioned, these are things that happened, especially the tolerable ones and the toxic ones. Um, they tend to happen, and then we have the positive ones. And if we go back to that thing we had called the pandemic, not feeling supported or being ignored. Yep, definitely. Right. And when that happens, not feeling supported or being ignored, it definitely has a profound effect on your mental wellness and how you feel, right, about yourself or people around you, and can shift and change your mood very quickly. All right. So that's really good. And so when we think about those stressors and the effects it has on our body, has anyone ever felt so, you get up on Monday, you're going to work, and then all of a sudden, by the next morning, you just all of a sudden feel sick, right? You just feel sick. Why? Because the stress that's been coming at you has a very profound effect on your body, your brain, your mind, all those things, and also your immune system. That's why sometimes you can feel fine, and then the next day or two, you're like, I all of a sudden feel sick. I feel tired. I feel exhausted. I feel tired. During those times, that's when we really have to listen to our body. Um, because it has layers of effects on ourselves. If people are already dealing with, say, high blood pressure, it could exacerbate the blood pressure, right? It can cause your blood pressure to spike. Or if you're dealing with any other type of medical conditions, it could cause those conditions to exacerbate temporarily, not feel well, and other things that go on. And as I said, with the statement from the other person, not feeling supported or being ignored, could cause any type of anxiety or depression, and also can cause unhealthy coping strategies, right? So here we list alcohol or drugs, or there are other unhealthy coping strategies people have, other type of addictions that people have, that because they feel like, well, nobody's listened to me and I'm just so overly stressed and I can't deal with whatever's going on in their life, they will veer off to negative coping strategies. And sometimes, many times, people can hide those negative coping strategies until it begins to interfere in their daily life, and um other people seeing it and how it affects other people around them, being able to try to help them. And as we know, that is a difficult journey when people are on that journey. Not that it's not, and that's a definitely toxic stressor. um Again, not that it's not, doesn't have the ability to change. It can, but only if that person wants to change, right? So as we know, but it definitely causes a lot of stress. And then we also talk about stress in children. And I put this in here purposely, right? Because, we had that thing called the pandemic happen, and we know that it caused a lot of tolerable and toxic stress all at the same time, um, that happen to parents, caregivers, teachers, and especially children. Yes, PTSD is a toxic stressor. Yeah, because what caused the PTSD? Something caused it, right? And so, for example, if a child, like if we talk about stress in children, if a child witness their parent or caregiver be in a, domestic violence situation as a young child, which causes them stress, and then they grow up, that could cause them to have PTSD, right? Because of that stress. And because of that, then develop some other behaviors, mental health, things like that. So it's a whole trigger effect that happens to a child. And if you look at children, I'm sure there are many children still to this day, because of the pandemic, have PTSD because of the stress that they were under, especially if and it's all children. It didn't just happen with children with disabilities or diagnoses. It happened to all children. And then then you layer that on top of food insecurities, people losing their jobs, and people still struggling. So we know that in schools, one of their big, I think it's between toxic and the stressors is getting children behavioral supports. And so really the parents struggling to be able, and depending upon where you live in the state, will depend upon where you can find those supports. So that's why it's important. I know it's very important with us, and I know with you, that when you're not just providing or getting services for the children, it's also making sure that families are connected to those services and supports, right? Whether they're in early intervention or they're getting some support through case management. So, and I always tell parents that even when you're taking your child to the doctor's office, you're not just going there. Hopefully, the doctor is understanding that, yes, you're going there for the well check visit or maybe the child's sick, but the doctor's office should also be kind of asking the questions of the parent and or caregiver. How are you doing? Do you need support? Because I know you're, stressed because your child is dealing with X, Y, and Z, and whatever's affecting your child to cause them to have maybe some bedwetting or sleep problems or other issues that could be happening. What is happening with that child? Um, can stress can stress in children also show up in yes, it can. Yes, it can. And the reason it can stress show up in, because you're sending this message to me. So can stress in children also show up as low self-esteem, avoiding situations in school? Yes. That's called school avoidance, because the child will also show um, their behaviors in other ways if they're not able to facilitate that conversation themselves. And it can happen with the youngest child. And so definitely causing them to have low self-esteem about themselves, and they don't feel worthy um, for being around. And that's why we have to watch when children start talking, showing signs of low self-esteem because of whatever stress that they're dealing with. Because remember, children don't just develop behaviors in school. There's also the social factor from home. And so if there are stressors in the home, or those stresses are causing that child to have low self-esteem about themselves, not feel worthy because maybe there's other issues that are happening in the home. And we also see this with siblings, right? And so if there's one child who's getting more attention from the parent and or caregiver, because the child needs more attention because of health needs or things like that, that could then also cause that child to have low self-esteem and then develop behaviors later on. And so, and it's a balancing act. I know I've been a single parent a very, very long time. And when my children were little, and one child having more needs than another, and I had to work at balancing myself a lot. But knowing that I also needed support from other people around me. And I know that culturally, this is where the cultural pieces come in. Some people don't want other people in their business. They don't want other people coming in telling you what to do with their child, even though you see, okay, Johnny is not responding to this the way he used to, and now I see regression, right? And so stress and children can show up in very variety of different ways, and many times act out in behaviors that will be shown. And sometimes, when children act out in those behaviors because of the stressors in school, then the school, will try to do what they're supposed to do, provide supports, but, contacting the parent and or caregiver, which can be a challenge in itself if the parent and or caregiver is saying, well, I don't see that at home. It must be something in school, right? Because at home, the parent or caregiver could be pacifying the child's behavior by giving them something, giving them food or giving them technology, which is only really pacifying or band-aiding the behavior or the stress that the child is under, which then moves over into the school or into other places. And so it makes it kind of difficult for everyone else to really manage it. And then, again, there now we're going down the rabbit hole of kind of this toxic stress that's happening with the child that's affecting that child in school or other places. And really trying. Now, there are families that will do what they need to do and figure out what's happening. We There's just a lot going on with children in school and families in general, and caregivers. I just got a call the other day from a organization I did a training for, and about a resource parent. And this particular resource parent has a young lady in their care, and now they have this child in their care full time because the parents are now deceased. And she was telling him about all the stressor that this young lady is under, and just trying to give them some direction of what they can do as far as the school system and things like that. And I actually saw the family because I was at an event. And you can see and tell that the young lady, definitely is dealing with a lot of stress, and she's a teenager. So, just dealing with a lot of stress. And I just told the resource parent, kind of gave her some guidance with the school system. I said, but, what does she want? Is she being vocal about what she wants? And I said, but, making sure that she's getting the support that she needs, and, them doing everything they can. So even in those situations with child welfare, that's a very large stressor for families, and the caregivers who are caring for the families, because, many of those children coming in that system come in with a lot of stress, right, that they're dealing with. Some other things around stress and children's well-being: we know that we have to check children's backpacks, if they're even taking backpacks to school anymore. Technology. I know there's a lot of things that come through, electronic school portals now. And I think I'm always a big advocate for talking to your children. And someone tell me there's two best places that you can actually have conversations with children. And what are those places? I want to see if people know. There's like two particular places you can conversate with children. The car, yeah. What's another place? What's another place? Yes, exactly. The kitchen. Yes, when you're eating together, the kitchen, right? Because you're kind of doing things, you can act natural, and hopefully they'll. And those are really the two best places that, or if they're in a captured place where they can't go anywhere, right? And so definitely the car, the kitchen, eating together, right? Because one, yeah, definitely the kitchen. And the good thing about that is it can also pull them away from that technology that can cause other stressors, right? Because they did some data on people when people go out to dinner, and I've observed this. People are like on their technology on their phones. I am the holder of my son's phone, so I purposely do not give him his phone when we go out to dinner, because he'll just like listen to his music or look at some sports data or something. Also bedtime and bedroom, yeah, and just really like putting the phone down, like keeping it away, right, to be able to engage in conversation, right, to understand what's happening in the world around them, because things are moving so fast, right? And so the other thing with parents, caregivers, all of us that we are working, we're doing all these things. The challenge is finding balance, right? Who here has trouble finding balance? Who has trouble finding balance? You too. It's difficult, right? It can be really difficult when there's a lot going on. But we know that if we don't find balance, right, it goes back to what I said before: work, school, kids, house chores, etc. And sometimes we got to figure out what is the order of importance and what I need to do. Um, and figuring that out, because why? We can get really exhausted, we can get sick, and then when we get sick, and then we're bedridden for whatever how many days. And so, and we're going to get to talk about stress management strategies in a minute, or self-care strategies. But if we look at this, right, we have increased chances of emotional maintaining our emotional health and wellness, and really setting those boundaries and saying no. um that's important. Or it's not that you can't do it at that moment. It's say, I can't do that right now, can we talk about it at another time? I am a list maker. I am a note taker. I have a notebook. I make a list of things I need to do for the day. And sometimes I have to veer off the list if I get a call from, my boss to say, can you do this? Or, da, 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 da. Or I'm waiting for an answer from an email, and then she'll get back to me and say, I'll say, okay, let me stop doing this because I got to do this. You have to, yeah, the checklist really helps and works. It kind of keeps you um grounded and guided on what you need to do. Or sometimes what I do is, because I leave my notebook downstairs where I work from home. Even though my laptop is upstairs with me, if I think of something, I just make a note in my calendar for the next day. Don't forget to do X, Y, and Z. I just put a note there so it reminds me, because it'll just go out of my mind. But kind of making that list and keeping notes for myself so I know this is what I have to do, looking at my calendar for the week, because my calendar is different every day, every week. And just looking by Friday, okay, so like this week I looked at my calendar because I know I've been so busy the past month. Um, all these electronics are, everyone needs everything now. Yeah, I know, right? And we depend on our technology to keep us on track. Um, when I looked at my calendar, I said, okay, this is what I have to do this week. What does my schedule look like on Friday? Great. I don't have any meetings. Okay, great. I said, don't say that too loud because something may pop. But, really kind of making it a point that my Friday this week, because I've been so busy the last month, that I need to keep it a light day. And I'm going to make it a point to do that, right? And just really kind of being able to uh, give myself the ability to breathe a little bit. And, again, this part, sharing your load with a partner, and that can mean like if you're at work, is it something else that someone else can do, delegating other things? I used to struggle with that. I used to struggle with delegating things. But I've gotten much better with it because someone asked me for something earlier in the week, and I was like, and I said, I can't do it. I don't have time to do it. I said, but let me see if so and so can do it, right? So, one, being able to delegate to other people and saying, no, I just can't do that. I just literally cannot, you know, look at that data and be able to get you what you need. I just can't. But I know someone else I know I can delegate it to. And so sometimes being able to do that and being okay with it. And sometimes it's hard if you have that control factor, right? So when we look at strategies for self-care and stress management, getting your body moving, right? So some people work remotely full time. I work remotely full time, but I do get out because I have to go to meetings or I have to go take a trip here and there. So, I do get to or I have to drive my son to an appointment. So I do able to go out. I do get to go to meetings, or I go to my office in Newark because I live in Mercer County. So, there are different meetings I do get to go to, which is sometimes a welcome break, but sometimes it's nice not to be able to have to drive a lot during the week and just get a little bit of a break from that. And again, practicing mindfulness and also connecting with other people, right? I know that when the pandemic happened, there were people who were introverts. They were totally okay with it. They're like, you know what? I'm not crazy about people anyway, so I'm fine with this. But people like myself, and tell me if this was you, I struggled with it. I struggled. I mean, yes, I was here with my children, but I really struggled with that people connection. And yes, I could call people and I could see people on Zoom, but and then, you had to go out to the supermarket with your mask on and go shopping. And, I'm one, when I go out, and my son is this way too, like I like to conversate with people, but you couldn't even do that. So it was really hard for me not to be able to be with people. It was hard for me, but you kind of figured it out. Was anybody an introvert and didn't care? Let me ask that first. Were you introvert and did you say yeah? Um, did anybody struggle with that because you're very much a people person, right? You're people person, right? It's difficult for us people, right? Who like to be around and talk to people, right? It was hard. I never knew how hard that would be, but it was difficult. Um, because when you like to socialize. And, again, we talked about early limiting views. I'm not going to lie, I did love being spending a lot of time at home with young babies, yeah, because you don't really get that, like, if you're going to work. I struggle not being able to go out and do things. Oh, yeah, that was hard, right? Not being able to go out and do activities that was difficult. You know, I loved going to the movies having and not for about 6 or 7 months not being able to go to a movie theater was really hard because I my children and I loved going to the movies, and when the movies finally opened up, I was like, "Okay, we can go to movies, but we gotta wear a mask, and we gotta do this, and we gotta do that," but we were able to go to the movies. Um, Sorry so late. I noticed the last slide, so the last one shared, show the low with your partner. What if you don't have a partner, supportive family? Okay. Okay, hold on. Let me just read this. With staff miss birthdays, weddings. Yeah, you miss those occasions. I'm sure it was hard for people to go to a wedding virtually or go to a birthday party virtually. That was very difficult, right? And then, many people were waiting for the vaccine and figuring out how that was going to work. But I want to go back and address this. I noticed the last slide said, the last one, shared your low with a partner. What if you don't have a partner, supportive family, or family that tries to sabotage you? What can you do? Okay, so I can relate to you with that. I don't I'm not in a relationship with anyone. And so, as I said, I've, been a single parent for a long time. And so, been relationships with me has been kind of been on the back burner. But um, I don't also have family around me at all. That's a whole toxic, one of those toxic stressor thingies. So my father passed away a few years ago. He was really like the last person in my family that I was able to depend on. I don't have a relationship with my sisters. I'm just being transparent here. So I understand what you're saying and hearing, and I understand in hearing what you say when people try to sabotage you. And so what I say about that, and I've been in that situation, you have to disconnect yourself from those people. Why? Because those are toxic situations that you don't want to invade your life. Now, that can be challenging for people to disconnect or disassociate with people, especially family, that try to sabotage your life and say or do things. And I've been in that situation. And when my children were younger, and I just made a hard line decision to say, I cannot and will not have that person who was a family member be part of my life because I did not want that type of toxic stress in my life or for my children. Right. And it's difficult at first in taking that hard line and and then just letting people be. They're gonna say what they're gonna say, but the question becomes, what happiness do you need and want for your life, right? Because if you allow that to happen, as we know, it affects your mind and your body, right? And causes you to have other things going on. And so that's what I would say to that because I've been in that situation. But it's really kind of making that decision and that hard line to say, okay, I cannot with this person anymore, right? Especially if it's family or even with friends. I just cannot with this person. Even if you try to talk to them, they don't hear you because they just hear in their own um words. So it's really figuring out what's more important to you, what's more important for my mind and my sanity, right? And it's usually comes back to myself, right? I'm more important than all this negative chatter that's going on because people are going to be who they are, right? And there's nothing you can do about changing a person's, especially an adult person's behavior because they don't feel like they need to change it. But only thing you can do is change yourself and do what you need to do to help yourself. So I hope that was helpful because, like, again, I could definitely relate to that because I've been there, um, as I said. So I hope that was helpful. Someone who's messaging, we don't know your comments. Yeah, So I hope that was helpful, because those things happen day in and day out to many, many people. Some people are very and then some people put stuff on social media, which I think is wrong anyway. But we have to really figure out what is important to yourself and to me and the important people around you, because life is can be challenging at times. And so when we look at these things and we look at self-care goals, right? And it's really important that we and I have a document I'm going to show you, and I will send this out. Oh, you're welcome. I will send, there's a activity document I'll show you in a minute, and I will also send this out as well, as long with the video link and the PowerPoint. And so when we look at developing self-care goals for ourselves, and in this quote here, it says, you can only live what you have, nothing more and nothing less, right? There's only so much we can give ourselves many times, and we have to figure out what that is. And one of the things that I do regularly, not just for myself, I also check in with my children. How are you doing? Right. Because I live with my children. I was like, how you doing? You good? Everybody good? I even asked my dog and my cat, you good? Everybody good? Okay. Mommy's good then, right? So, but I also check in. I also supervise staff. I check in with them. And when we have team meetings, the first thing I do is check in with them. I don't go into the work, although I have a list of things we gotta have to discuss, but I check in with them, especially when I know there are things happening in their lives. Or if I didn't know anything was happening, I always check in first. Or if another colleague calls me, the first thing I'll say, how are you doing? Everything good? Especially certain people I know that are dealing with things. And even though they're calling me for something, I'll say, how are you doing? I'm always checking in. And they're like, how are you doing? So we have this kind of check-in thing, because I think that's really important, that people feel checked on, right? Especially with, the people who are working here and there, doing mindfulness and getting moving. Hopefully Mother Nature will get it together and it will get warm, because I think she's being really, really fickle right now, like what's happening. It's cool, it's raining, it's maybe a sunny day. So hopefully, the weather will get straightened out a little bit and it'll be nice, and just to kind of sit and take in the sun, or just listening to nature and looking at the trees and just kind of looking at the earth in itself, right? And then again, kind of setting those boundaries, and again, limiting social media and really giving yourself a break. Sometimes, because I have the ability of working remotely, and some days at 3 o'clock, my brain is like, I can't do anymore. Like literally, I'll say to myself, like, you know what, I'm just kind of done for the day, right? Especially if I've had a really long week, or the week before was really long, and really being able to kind of balance myself out. Now, maintaining a good sleep schedule, still struggle with that. I'm a night person. I stay up till about 11, sometimes 12, and then I fall asleep. Um, but it's important that we get our sleep. As we know, the statistics say we have to get a certain amount of hours of sleep. But I think those are individual situations, and then unplugging from technology. Now, one time I saw a news report and they said, well, put your phone in another room. I was like, then, well, that's not possible because my phone is the only phone that I have, right? But and some people put timers on their phone, especially for social media. My daughter does it, which is interesting that she's 29 and she puts a timer on herself for social media, but she does. And then also on the weekends, right? Not checking work emails, or not emailing people after a certain time of day. I enforce that with my staff. And I know the SPAN organization enforces that. If you're after 5, try really, unless it's like an emergency. I know if the executive director texts or calls me after 5, it's because, one, either she's getting back to me because I needed to talk to her, or two, because she really, really needed something. And it's not often, but I think it's really important that, especially when we are finished with work, work is finished. I don't even open my laptop unless I'm doing a training, or if there's something I really need to schedule or I'll schedule an email to go out in the morning. I will not email people after a certain time. Again, unless someone really, really needs something urgently, which is rare. Um, I don't take my laptop on vacation at all. That's a no-no. It comes with me when I go to conferences, yes, but I don't take my laptop on vacation. I don't look at emails. So we really have to kind of work on balancing that out because it's gonna be there whether you get back to it or not. So me just what's happening. Okay. So other things again, improving your vision and your focus, nutrition benefits. As we know, being out in the sun gives us our vitamin D, but obviously we got to remember put sunscreen on, right? Even in the winter, your face needs sunscreen because it's still exposed to the sun. And so we know that we need to do that. In the summer, definitely a lot more. And so the other thing with take care of ourselves is eating well, right? And so that's part of our health and physical wellness that we need. Let me get back to you about that one. So healthy and wellness and eating, and we know, there's a big to do about this going on, with people using different weight loss medications or things like that that are meant for people who have certain diagnoses, but people are now using for weight loss. It's a whole big thing now. But one, we know that if you have any type of medical conditions, you definitely have to be guided by a doctor, right? The doctors, or doctors need to guide you on what you need to do, whether there's medication involved or not. And so we want to make sure that if you have medical conditions, as we know, we want to be taking our medication as guided by the doctor. We want to ensure that we are doing things to help prolong our health in our bodies, which means good nutrition, doing small things, drinking water, eating fruits and vegetables. We know that with the spring summer season coming in, now we have a lot more fruits and vegetables that are at our disposal to be able to eat and things like that. Lowering caffeine intake. Some people love their coffee, right? But really being mindful of the amount of coffee that you drink. I'm not saying anything you don't already know. It's just kind of like a reminder, but really kind of what do we do to keep ourselves healthy? And we know it's okay to indulge a little bit in some, whatever your sweet tooth is or whatever that is, but some people can't. And so really being guided by the doctor with those things you can or cannot do. Oh, okay. She answered that. Thank you. So again, really kind of looking at and if you have children, getting your children involved in cooking and going food shopping. But then again, going food shopping with your children can be a little bit of one of those tolerable stresses and sometimes not the best thing to do because then you end up buying more stuff than you want to, right? And believe me, even though my son is 23, my daughter's 29, I actually go food shopping more without them than I do with them. So it's just easier for me to think and I take my list. I do go on my daughter. With my son, Jordan, he'll be like, well, can I get this? And can I get that? I'm like, no. So he'll just stay home. But sometimes I take him because I want him to understand about food shopping and ringing up grocery items as part of because he has a developmental disability. So I'll take him during when it's not very crowded. And so people don't look at me with the, mean face. Why is he taking so long at the self checkout? So I, will take him during the lesser times to teach him to keep his skills up with ringing up groceries and using the card. So I will do that. And if he wants to buy something, I am the holder of his card, but I will then let him pay for it himself to keep his skill set up. So again, those things and why it's good to eat healthy. We know that there are superfoods, and we know that the superfoods provide us with all those vitamins and nutrients and antioxidants and things that we need to keep ourselves healthy. We know around all the colorful foods that we need, and some people can't eat everything, again, knowing what you can or cannot eat. What, children sometimes can't eat certain things, but what are those substitutes? A lot of people are into um not just organic foods, but foods that don't have a lot of different pesticides in it and things like that. And we all know how expensive foods are now. You can buy 10 items and you're already spent $150. I'm like, what did I just buy? So, so kind of looking at those things and where do we shop and to get the best buy for our money. We know that hydration is really important. We must drink our water because it helps us to hydrate our bodies. We know that's really, really important. It helps our mind. It also helps with psychology, helps with relaxation. And something that I do, well, I have to drink water in the morning because I take medication, but I do drink water in the morning and it does help me boost my energy a little bit. Does anybody else do that? Like drink water like first thing in the morning? And does it help you? Right? It does help you, right? It kind of boosts your energy up a little bit just to give you some energy. So yeah, drinking water, I always say drinking water in the morning is really helpful to you. Yep. And especially, when it comes to the summer, you're just like, gotta have that water, right? Especially if you're outside. Yeah, water, or they say water or putting some lemon or lime in there is really helpful too, as well. Just to boost your energy throughout the day and trying to keep fruits and vegetables around, which can be helpful to you. So here is the activity sheet, and I will send this as well. And so earlier, as you know, I talked about, and we kind of had some discussion about, why it's important to keep our mind healthy, keep our bodies healthy, and our spirit healthy, because they're all interconnected. And when you look here, when we kind of mentioned about supportive people in your life, and you don't need, 10, 20 people, it's really who are those quality people in my life I can go to say X, Y, and Z. I need support in X, Y, and Z. And then releasing those toxic people out of your life. And then what is it that you want to accomplish when you're focusing on your mind, your body, or your spirit? Now, we know that all three of these are very interconnected, but there are certain times of the day, of the week, that you're just focused on one thing. Like if you're feeling exhausted, you're focusing on your body and what can you do, but it does indirectly affect your mind and your spirit. But you may want to focus on taking your one part of your body, your mind, or your spirit. So I ask everyone here, looking at this chart, and again, I will send this document out to you. What would be at this point in time, because it could change tomorrow, next week, whatever that is, what would be one part of this chart that you would want to work on, like right now? What would you create a self-care plan to work on? Would it be a mind, body? And sometimes it can be both, mind, body, or spirit. What would you say? You can write it in the chat. Your spirit, okay. Body, okay. Mind, body. Right. And you can, I'm not going to ask exactly what would be the particulars, but kind of writing up a plan, the spirit, connect with my more friends. Yeah, especially now that it's going to start getting warm, right? Hopefully, if Mother Nature kind of gets it together, kind of being outside with people, really connecting to people that you are feel connected to, right? Because it's hard to feel connected to people, and making sure people don't have negative agendas, but really kind of developing a plan to figure out what is, some people said body, mind, and spirit. What is it? And then who are those people who are going to support me on this journey, right? um if someone's dealing with some medical journey, right, their body may be more important, and then the mind comes part of that, depending upon what's happening with you. Exercising for your mind and body, yeah, definitely, right, it helps with all that connection. And exercising could be anything. They say you only need to do 30 minutes of walking 5 days a week, and that could look different. If you're living in a house, you're going up and down the stairs, or just kind of they were talking about like everyday household chores that you're doing around your house or your home, kind of counts for that exercise time. And sometimes you just don't realize you're doing it, but you're getting that exercise, right? And if people are garden people, I don't have a green thumb at all. I just slap some mulch in my yard and just call it a day because I'm just not that person. But I think Cynthia just raised her hand. Yes, she is. I don't got it. I'm not. I'm like, I told my daughter, we got to put the mulch down. Oh, whipped up the weeds, and that's it. That's all I can do. But the thing is that we have to and make a goal to do something for ourselves. I go to the nail salon every 2 weeks without fail. All year round. I get my nails, my pedicure, and my eyebrows every 2 weeks. And then there's other things I do in between. My children and I go on vacation together. Um, my children and I we are big Disney people. So we go to Disney World to Orlando twice a year. We have our trip coming up in 41 days. And so we're very excited about it. And then we also go during Christmas because it's my birthday and my daughter's birthday. And it's something that the three of us look forward to going to together. And then we have other things we plan in between. So I generally enjoy being around my children, even though sometimes they can get on my nerves, but they are my children and I love them. But we do have a good time together. So I think it's kind of making those plans. And then I have my friends around me. But really kind of thinking about what haven't I done or what did I stop doing to take care of me? Right? Because I've been doing all these other things. So kind of thinking about that. And sometimes I'll ask people, well, what did you do before you got so busy? What was a hobby that you did that you forgot about that you did before you got really, really busy with life, when life happened, right? Kind of thinking about what could you do to kind of bring that back to you, because it's not being selfish, it's just really kind of giving you joy. Yeah, bringing you joy, connecting with others, being creative, being outside, doing what brings you joy. You had said the right word, the joy word, right? Because there's so much, again, as we said, we can turn the news on and it really can have an effect on your mental health, right? Because it's so bringing down, right? But what can we do to bring joy in our lives every day? Sometimes it's reading a quote or looking at something funny. And social media has its thing. You can watch a funny video, but or calling someone, and maybe you are feeling a little stressed, but you have that person you can call and say, I just need you to listen to me right now because I need to rant. And then you feel good because you got the rant off, right? And so kind of like, what is that thing that gives you joy or help you? I think it's so important to constantly remind yourself to do things. Yes, it is. It's really, really important to remind yourself to do things every day, or try to every day, because we forget, because we get so busy in our busyness. Okay. So I want to thank you. And so here's the last quote, because I love quotes. Eventually, all things fall into place. Until then, laugh at the confusion, laugh for the moments, and know everything happens for a reason.
Oh, because you gotta laugh.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing all of those great techniques, strategies, things to think about, reminders, because everyone knows you're supposed to eat fruit and drink water and exercise and go outside, but it's crazy how we just don't do those simple things sometimes that can make such a difference.
Yeah, definitely. And having those people around who can support you, and
Yes,
kind of leave you alone, the toxic people. 'Cause they're going to
absolutely.
be who they are.
And
Mhm.
everyone, just think, you took this time right now for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You remembered, you took some time. So kudos, you did it today. And now you're going to remember to do it more and to keep doing it.
And I'm going to
We
send
need our reminders. Yes.
yeah, I'm going to send the self-care goal sheet along with the PowerPoint and the mindfulness video. I will send that out. Probably not now, but I will send it out in the morning.
Thank you. We actually will be sending this, everything you send us and all the resources from the entire week out to everyone who registered.